Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns newsstands. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
Welcome, Jeff. My name is Ian Bagg. Your name is Jeff Sharples. The show is called Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian. I'm in Los Angeles. You are somebody's kitchen. What's going on? Where are you?
That's right. I'm getting ready to audition for the Iron Chef. Actually, or is it Chopped or whatever? Actually, this is the best we could do this week on location in Cancun, Mexico.
No.
Playa del Carmen, yes, to be exact, with some friends. Took a few days off, worked last week, and really I got in after midnight into LA and jumped on a flight 8 a.m. the next morning down here. And it's been amazing. People are fantastic, and anyone that's been down here knows how great they are. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm just happy I got internet service so we could do this today.
Nice.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here. We got a great guest coming in today. We got Russ Courtnall, originally of the Toronto Maple Leafs, played for a couple other teams. We got him coming in thanks to Corey Hirsch. Corey Hirsch hooked that up for us. So we'll have to get a Corey Hirsch story out of Russ. I was on the road all in Canada last week, so we'll talk about that. But let's get to the interview. Shall we get to the interview, Jeff? Shall we get to the
Let's do it.
Let's get to the interview. This interview is brought to you by SuperDeker, superdeker.com. Go there, learn how to stick handle, become a pro, go from Ian to Jeff to Russ. That's what you'll do right there. SuperDeker.com, use slices and code, get yourself a little discount. Let's go to Russ Courtnall. Today's guest was drafted by Toronto Maple Leafs 7th overall in 1983. And now he lives in Los Angeles, getting a suntan. Please welcome Russ Courtnall. Hello, Russ. How are you?
Hey, how are you, Ian?
I'm doing good. Jeff's he's in Mexico because he's too cool for America anymore. Yeah. No, he's just down there on vacation. So we're doing this, and we appreciate you dropping in. You live in Los Angeles now, right? Correct?
Yeah, I'm out in a place called Westlake Village. Oh. For the golf fans, I live at a place called Sherwood Country Club where they used to have the Shark Shootout and the Tiger Chevron and a couple other tournaments. So for people who watch golf, probably know where that is. But it's 45 minutes, depending on traffic from LAX.
Is that your passion now? The golf? Is that what your passion is?
I really enjoy playing. I'm not that good, but I do enjoy it. I think Jeff can probably relate to this. When you leave hockey, it kind of substitutes that locker room atmosphere, hanging out with your buddies. So I really enjoy it, and I like hanging out with the guys playing golf. So it's fun. That's
awesome. So you grew up in Victoria.
Yeah.
You played for the Victoria Cougars is what you did. Mm-hmm. That's where you played your junior.
Yeah.
Would you suggest that to a kid playing for your hometown?
It was great for me. I had gone away to a school in Saskatchewan, Notre Dame, and I left home at 14. Oh, really? Yeah. So I was gone when I was 14 and 16. And I belonged to the Medicine Hat. My rights were with Medicine Hat. I told them I was going to go to college. I really, truly thought I was going to go to college. And then I got traded to Calgary, and they called me, and I said, the only way I'll play in the WHL is if I get to play with my brother in Victoria. And they traded me. And so that's why I ended up back in Victoria, and I loved it. It was great for me. I got to play with Jeff, and really helped me and elevated my game, and probably elevated me as a draft pick, and being home, it was great. It was fun.
Before Jeff asks you, Mr. Sharples asked you a question. You must be one of the first kids to ever take control of his career like that. Most guys just go where they tell you.
Well, at Notre Dame, they were really pushing the college route. And so I was getting a lot of attention from the American colleges, and I was torn. I was really torn on what to do. And so I talked to my brother and he said, well, if we can work out a deal and you can get traded here, it'd be great. And so, yeah, I just stubbornly said, and I was being honest, if I don't play in Victoria, I'm going to go to college. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I pissed off my coach, Barry McKenzie at Notre Dame, because he wanted us all to come back the next year and play on the juvenile team together. And it was funny, we were in a classroom and he had both the midget, we had two really good midget teams, and he had everybody in the room, classroom, and he's like, there's only two guys in this room who are going to make it to the NHL. And I was like, I wonder who the other one is. And I don't know why I thought that. I was a little guy. I hadn't really grown much, but I just was so focused on making it to the NHL. Wendell Clark was in the room, but he was a year younger than me. And there was quite a few guys out of that room that ended up playing. There was probably about 6 guys and ended up making it to the NHL.
Hey, Russ.
That was funny.
I'm interested. So you went to Notre Dame, which was kind of like what they consider in the States a prep school now. And then you went on, and Russ's brother, Jeff Courtnall, played a long time in the NHL too, really good player. Just like Russ. And for people that don't remember Russ was an unbelievable skater and really quick and shifty and a great goal scorer. Tell me about when you got to junior. A lot of people, we talk about this whenever we get someone on the plate for the World Juniors. You went to, so you came out of Notre Dame, basically for people in the States, a prep school, Western Hockey League, the rough and tumble Western Hockey League. And then you got drafted high, but then you went to the World Junior. Maybe just talk a little bit about your junior experience and your World Junior experience, because I'm interested to know how that helped form the rest of your thinking or your career, but the pressure that you guys were under when you were a World Junior player for Canada.
Well, just before, I didn't answer Ian's question. Ian, I tell parents today about whether to go WHL junior or colleges, depending on your kid, whether they're scholastic or they need more time. I think that the college route is a great route, because my son went the college route and it worked out great for him. But going back to my career, I was still growing, got to play with my brother. You said rough and tumble, and thank God I had an overage brother who could fight, and he protected me. If anyone looked at me the wrong way, he really looked after me. So he made a lot of room for me, and I was able to excel. I got drafted that year, and I went back to Victoria. Toronto Maple Leafs told me I was going back. So I went back, made the World Junior team. And it was just an unbelievable experience to play with the best players in Canada. And it's a really good measuring stick to see where you are in Canada and all the other great players around the world that go to this tournament. And so I went there, and we didn't have great success. We came 4th, but individually it was a great tournament for me, and I got recognized by the Olympic team. And Dave King said to me if I had a good World Juniors, they were going to call me up. And so I made the Olympic team, and I went right from the World Juniors to the Olympics. And so it was such a great staircase for me to the NHL. And then I got to play against the Russians, the Red Army, the Czechs, the Swedes, and most of those players, if not all, they hadn't started to come over. The Swedes had, but the Czechs and the Russians really hadn't started coming over to the NHL. So we got to play against the best players at the Olympics too in the world. And then I got called up to Toronto, and that was it. It really helped me to go in those steps. I went midget, junior, World Junior Championships, Olympics, NHL versus, midget, junior, trying to make the NHL. So it really helped me a lot, and had to mature quickly and took some time. But it was really huge for me.
Was your brother on any of those other teams with you other than just the junior team?
He got screwed by Alan Eagleson.
Which
Alan
is
Eagleson, when you're touted, Sharps can, he probably remembers this, all the agents come out and wine and dine you when you're rated to go in the first round. So Eagleson came out and he told my brother that if we both went with him, that he would make the Olympic team next year. We did, and we went with Bill Waters, and he went to the camp and he was one of the best players they had, and they cut him. So he went to the minors that year. Hershey signed him, or Boston Bruins signed him, and he went to Hershey and he played there a couple of years. But unfortunately, Jeff and I would have played on that team if I guess if we had signed with Eagleson.
what a ridiculously good player to leave off that team.
Yeah, and he had a great camp. He was one of the top scorers in the summer. He went to the summer camp. I did not, and he had a great camp, and they still released him. So Alan Eagleson had his hands all over that Olympic team. After we played the Olympics, we again came fourth. We lost the bronze medal to Sweden 2-0, and he organized a tournament in France for us to play. And then there was 4 teams, and he probably made some money off that tournament.
Well, for people, Alan Eagleson was an agent. And then the next thing we know, Alan Eagleson was the head of the NHLPA, right, Russ? And so
I think he was at the same time. I think he was doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
What a conflict. Yeah.
So yeah, he had a lot of juice back in the day. And I remember actually one of our guests last week, Barzy, Dave Barr, was on. And I remember Barzy was he came in the dressing room one day in Detroit, Alan Eagleson. Guys were ready for him. But boy, could he talk his way out of a corner. I'm telling you what.
Yeah.
Oh, take this money from here. We take it over there. And everyone, I mean, he was brilliant at being able to, I'm not sure if the words manipulate the situation or whatever, but he had a lot of power back when both of us started in the game, and obviously affected your brother and others, right? To a certain degree.
He was a negotiator. When we went to the Olympics in Sarajevo, we were sponsored by Labatt's, and they brought over 1,000 24 packs, and they bartered everything with beer over there. It was hilarious. And after we lost the bronze medal game, Kirk Muller and I got the equipment van, and we went over to the Labatt's house because we were leaving the next day, and we filled it up with every case of beer that was left in the garage, and we filled up hockey bags, and he and I carried them in full of beer into the village, which is illegal. But when you go through the village, it's like going into the airport. Everything has to go through a metal detector. And we had this guy on the other side we'd give him a case of beer every time we went through. And we were all we were staying in an 8-story apartment building in the village. There's all these beautiful brand new apartment buildings they had built for the village, and we filled every on the 8-story building. Every balcony had 2 to 3 or 4 cases of Labatt's on the balcony, and we threw the biggest party in Olympic history. The whole village showed up, and we had a shaker in 8 floors and however many apartments were on each floor. It was hilarious. And that was Kirk Muller and I. He was 17 and I was 18, and we were the rookies. So we had to load up the building with beer. Yeah.
That's great. You may have not won the gold medal, but you guys were definitely the champions of that Olympics.
Oh yes, we were.
Was it all like bottles, or was it cans?
Cans.
Oh, thank God.
Cans.
Can you imagine dragging all those bottles up? Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, so we would fill up one goalie bag, and he'd grab one handle and I grabbed the other. And we walked in, and the guy just shaking his head. And we're like, take one, let us through. And we did. I don't know how many trips we made, but that's what Kirk and I did all afternoon. Because back then I think we played at 8 or 9 in the morning for TV, because it was broadcasted back in Canada. And wherever. So the gold medal game was after ours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was fun. Yeah, you guys sound like you had a great time. And then you go to the do you go to the NHL the year afterwards?
Right. No, right after I flew home from, so we went Sarajevo, then we went to France, played in a tournament in France and in Paris. And then I went back to Victoria thinking I was going to play for the Cougars again. I might have played one game, and then my first NHL game was the next week in Vancouver.
Oh.
I was so jet lagged. I played the first 2 periods, and Mike Nikolic was the coach, and he leaned forward and he said, "Hey kid, I'm not going to play in the third. You're looking a little tired." And I swear to God, I was going to fall asleep. I was so wiped out. I was just like, my head was banging off. I was so fired up, but I was so tired from that trip because I literally got off the plane and was like a couple days later, I was playing in Vancouver.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. Plus, Tiger Williams freaking ran me through the end of the board, so they probably didn't want me to get killed.
Oh, he's still a scary man. I seen him. I seen him in Vancouver not too long ago, and he wanted. He wanted to talk to me about Terrace, British Columbia. How does he want to talk to me? He slaps me. That's how.
Yeah.
Hey, slap!
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good time.
You guys are both from Terrace?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you been up there ever?
No. But I'm glad I'm on a show with three BC boys.
Yeah.
I can't say I mean, if I have been there, it would have been in and out because I don't really remember.
Oh, you'd remember. Oh, you'd remember. Yeah. Basically, that 8-story house party is a trailer. So, I love it. Yeah. Jeff.
Russ, so you had Ian and I were talking about this before you came on, and we were looking at the teams you played for, and like you played in all these great cities, like, you know, and of course the league's really expanded since then. But as you kind of went through Toronto and started making your way through your career, I mean, Toronto, they call it the Mecca, right? So, I mean, you were a first-round draft pick and all this pressure on you. I imagine you got asked some pretty interesting questions by the media out there, but like, as you look back on your career, and it was a really successful career, where did you enjoy playing the most, and you know, that you really felt you hit your stride?
Well, I loved playing for Toronto. I grew up a fan. Boris Selming was my favorite player. He became a teammate and a good friend. And unfortunately, we lost Boris this year. So Toronto was great. I got to play with Wendell Clark and Gary Lehman. We all went to Notre Dame, so we were called the Hound Line. And we all know what happened when Wendell got to Toronto. The place went crazy, and we started to play really well together. And then John Brophy came in, and my last year there just wasn't working out. So I got traded to Montreal. Montreal was just phenomenal because it's such it's just a storied team and organization, and we were really good. We lost the Stanley Cup that year to Calgary my first year there, and so I'm so fortunate I got to play in Toronto, Montreal, New York, Vancouver, Dallas, LA, and I think Montreal, I switched from a center to right wing, and Pat Burns really taught me how to play the game both ways, and I really improved on my defensive game and became more known as a two-way winger, and instead of all offense. When I was in Toronto, I was more offensive, but so I really learned a lot about the game, especially the team game. And then I'd say the last couple of years there, and then Dallas, I really, offensively I was playing both defense and offense and putting up some decent numbers, and then continued on in Vancouver, and then things kind of slowed down after that. But I was fortunate to play in some great places. Vancouver's home for me, Victoria, but being a BC, you guys being BC boys, like playing for the Canucks is pretty special. So I can't complain. All the cities I got to play in were great, and Dallas was interesting because I actually played 1 year in Minnesota, and then we moved to Dallas. So we brought hockey to Dallas. That was pretty exciting, bringing a new sport to the city, and Dallas loves their athletes. So it's funny though, LA would probably be the place that was, your least recognized. All those other places, New York is a big city, but all those cities, when you're playing well, it's great. But when things are going the wrong way, it sucks. You lock yourself in your apartment and order in.
What about that rivalry, Toronto, Montreal, and you get traded, right? Basically your arch rival. I'm always interested to know what that, because this league was smaller back then, right? It was not 32 teams like it is now, but how was that playing Toronto and Montreal? Like, and then you get traded up to Montreal and you got to play these guys that were your buddies. I mean, it happens, but how was that?
When I'll tell you, when I grew up, our house was Toronto Maple Leaf fans, and Saturday night we were allowed to eat in front of the TV to watch the Leafs. Other than that, we had to eat at the kitchen table. And my dad was a hockey player, and his rights were owned by Detroit, and he quit to work in the mill because he couldn't play for Toronto. So when I got drafted, it was unbelievable. When I got traded, it was unbelievable. And the first game I played was in Chicago. And before I put that jersey on, my dad passed away when I was 13. I held up the Habs jersey and I looked in the sky and go, "Sorry, Dad." And but it was a great experience, and my career was not going well, and I got traded, so I was desperate to just get back to playing good hockey and feeling like I belong in the league again, and so I was willing to go anywhere, and I was so fortunate that I got traded to Montreal. But so many people cannot believe that Toronto made that deal for Toronto, Montreal. They don't make very many trades with each other, but Toronto was doing really well, and we got off to a good start, but we started getting pushed around, so they wanted a tough guy. So they traded me for John Kordic. And unfortunately, John had a lot of personal stuff going on, and it didn't work out. But anyways, it worked out for me.
I got a question. Well, our mutual friend that got you on the show is Corey Hirsch, and one of the things
Hershey,
he said to me, actually he said this a while ago. He said one of the guys that looked out for me when I was a young kid on the team was Russ Courtnall. And I'm curious, because that was in your times and Jeff's times, that was when you got rooked, you got really hazed.
Yeah.
What made you, were you always like that? Or is it from playing with your brother that you would step in and really kind of protect the younger guys?
What happened with me was I was 18, went to Toronto, and we had a few older players in the twilight of their career. And I didn't get treated very well. The guy who treated me the best was Boria, and I hung out with Gary Nyland, Gary Lehman, who were around my age. But the older players we had on our team, it was brutal. Like it was, getting ready for a game, and guys are like, "Are you nervous? Are you this?" Like teasing you right up until game time. And it was nonstop. And it really bothered me. But my brother told me, he says, "Just don't show it. Because if you show them that it's bugging you, they'll keep teasing you, and they'll keep doing this and do the haze and all that crap." So my experience as a rookie wasn't good. And so when I got into the position of being a veteran player, I wanted to make sure that all the rookies didn't go through what I went through. So I just naturally tried to help out as best I could and try to be a good teammate. And Hershey came along, and he was just awesome. Like, he's quiet, he's he beats himself up, and I used to call him Schleprock because he was like that kid, that cartoon character that walked by a building, wowsy wow woo woo, and it'd fall down. Like Hershey to this day, he's always hard on himself. But I loved a team that was close knit, and I loved all the guys being together. And I used to say to guys when we were on the road, like, let's all go out. And guys are like, oh, I don't want to go out. I don't want to drink. I go, you don't have to drink. Like, just come out. We're all together, be together. And I felt like Montreal, we were such a tight knit group and we were so successful. And I felt like that's why one of the reasons we were so good is because we really enjoyed each other and hung out a lot together. So I tried to carry that throughout my career. But when I got to Vancouver, we started playing this game and we started making a few more bucks. We'd go to nicer restaurants. And so we played a credit card game after dinner. And so we go for a nice dinner, divide it. So there's 8 guys. We divide it 8 ways. And if you don't want to play, you pay your percentage of the bill. But if you want to play, you throw your credit card in the wine bucket. The last credit card out pays the entire bill. And 9 times out of 10, everybody was in. So Hershey was a rookie. We're in Pittsburgh. I think we're at Mastro's or Ruth Chris or something. The bill's about $4,300. And he's like, I don't want to play. And Dean Melcock goes, come on, Hershey, be one of the boys. So in goes his credit card and he loses.
Oh no.
Last out is Hershey. So 3 days later, we're in Philadelphia. We're at another steakhouse. And Dean Melcock, it's another $4,000 bill. And Dean Melcock goes, you can't lose 2 in a row. Boom. Hershey loses his entire paycheck in 2 meals. So anyways, I've told that story a bunch, but it was a fun game. I just actually was in Charleston and I told the guys we're playing. I was out there watching my son play in the East Coast Hockey League, and I told these guys about this game. They go, oh, we'll play. And I go, no gloating. We used to say no gloating. First guy out always stands out of his chair and cheers. So in Charleston, I jumped out of my chair and everybody in the restaurant thought somebody was getting held up.
That's awesome.
Well, that explains Hershey when he comes over to my house now. He's always asking if we have any snacks. So
That's his nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Snacks?
He always used to come into my house in Vegas after we finished playing. He'd go, where's your snacks? There's no snacks. So I'd always run knowing he would pop by at some point. But hey, I want to ask you, Russ, about you brought up Dean Melcock, another great guy from out west. What was your favorite building to play in? I'm just kind of curious on that. Where did you find? Was there one building you loved to play in, and you did really well in, or was there? How did that work out? Did you just some?
I love playing the Montreal Forum. The Forum was an unbelievable place to play on the road. The old Chicago Stadium. I mean, you could be asleep, and when that guy finished that anthem, I mean, you couldn't hear the guy beside you when the guy was singing the anthem. So I love Chicago, and then for ice, Edmonton and old Minnesota arena. For me, being a skater, those 2 buildings were phenomenal for guys who like to skate. The ice just seemed to be better than anywhere else. But old Maple Leaf Gardens, of course, but the Forum was. I lived downtown in Montreal, and it was just such an event going to the game. I walked to the Forum. Like the whole day was just this build up to the game, and it's like probably like being an actor and being on Broadway. I mean, it was just every game was just an event.
Love it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the Chicago Stadium was my favorite building ever to play in. And not only the national anthem was incredible, but when they hit that foghorn.
Oh my God.
The first time you're skating around a warm up and they hit it to end warm up, you just about come out of your skin. But and the Forum was special too. I would agree 100% with you on those two. They just were so much fun, and they basically built Chicago Stadium around the organ.
Yeah, the best hot dogs in the league were in Montreal. The Shea Show.
Yeah.
When I played there with Chris Chelios, he'd have a burger. He and I were the first 2 guys at the rink, and he'd have a burger and I'd have a hot dog before every game. Oh my God.
I love it.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
That's great.
Before us, it was Guy Lafleur smoking in the room. Went from smoking to hot dogs.
Uh, you finished in LA, right? So
Yeah.
and that's where
Yeah.
your family, you raised your family in Los Angeles?
Well, what happened was during my career, I went to, in the summer, we'd go to these celebrity events, and I met some actors at a David Foster event in Victoria, and they invited me down. This girl, Kimber Sessions, she's from Tawasin. She had a TV show. It was kind of like Baywatch, but it was called something else. So she invited me
Tawasin
down
Watch.
to what?
Tawasin Watch.
Yeah, Tawasin Watch.
She would look for the ferry coming across from Victoria.
But she invited me down, so I went to LA and I met my future wife there.
Mhm.
And so I started going down in the off season, and it was a great place to hang out because no one knew who we were.
Mhm.
You go from Montreal, where I mean everybody knows who you are. It's unbelievable. It's incredible how much they love their players there. But so it was kind of nice to go down to LA and just be able to relax and not look over your shoulder. And so a workout there, and then the Kings would start skating. So all these guys like Pavel Bure, Fedorov, Mogilny, Chelios, myself, Pete Svoboda, and a few other guys who lived there in the off season, and we would train with the Kings until we all go to training camp. So it was a great place to spend the off season, and I met my wife, who's an actress at the time. We got married a couple years later, and and then I just kept spending my off seasons in LA, and I don't live here because I played in LA. It's because of my wife.
Would you work out in Hermosa Beach? Would you work out with Troll? Did Troll own that?
No, I was in I lived in the Hollywood Hills, and so I skated with the guys, and then I worked out on my own. I worked out with a guy named Johnny G, who started spinning.
Uh-huh.
And so Johnny G had this little studio before spinning was a thing, and or he started it, and I did that class, and there was a gym nearby. But a lot of guys like Chelly and Svoboda McGillney, they worked out with a guy named TR Goodman, and TR started working guys out in Venice. And I just didn't want to drive down to Venice, so I didn't go down
Which
there.
rink would you skate at?
It was in the Valley. It was in Van Nuys. It was called the Isoplex, and Luc Robitaille and Pat Brisson and a guy
Was it like
Billboard magazine.
FedEx building?
Yeah, they turned it into so they sold, the guy sold it to FedEx, and then they built the new practice facility in El Segundo.
Oh, what's that?
But my 2 years there, we practiced in the Valley at that old rink, Isoplex. And then my last year, I think it was the NBA was on strike. So we got to practice at the Forum every day, which sucked for me because I lived about 45 minutes from there.
Oh, you're like Ray Donovan putting all those miles on your car all over the place. Holy shit.
Well,
that's a lot.
A couple times I missed practice because of the rain, because people here, they don't know how to drive in the rain. So
they're learning this year.
Larry Robinson was like, "Hey Russ, if it rains, just don't bother coming to practice." So a couple times I called in, and the boy, it'd be sunny in freaking El Segundo, and they were like, "You're so full of shit."
I love that. Once you were out of hockey, were you out of hockey? I know your son played hockey, but did you want anything to do with it when you were done, or no?
No, I didn't get involved. I coached my son. But I got offered a couple like TV things, to try it. And Jeff went and did it. He did the color for a game, and he said he couldn't stand it because he had to be around the rink all day. And he's like, you won't like it. So I didn't actually go do that. But no, I did not get involved in hockey, just coaching kids. And I really enjoyed coaching my son, and coached him for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And the only coaching thing I did was over in Davos. I got invited to be the assistant coach for the Canadian team that played in Davos, and so that was fun. Our family went over for Christmas and New Year's, and we came second. I think we lost to the Russians, but that was fun.
Damn Russians.
Yeah.
Hey, so Russ, so you and your brother, I mean, obviously being BC boys and both being NHL players and well known. What did you get into then after because some of the guys that we have on the pod that you played with and against, these guys have never left the game, but you have, and you've done very well for yourself. What did you get into and like kind of how did the trail take you to where we are today? What are your passions and what are you doing now? Like, and what did you do as soon as you left the game?
Well, I didn't do much for 16 years. I have been involved and am involved in real estate. And so my wife and I built a couple houses. We'd live in them, sell them. And we were doing really well with that. And then the last house we sold in 2012 to Britney Spears, believe it or not, here at Sherwood. And my wife's like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like as soon as we get in our house, you're like, you want to sell it and do another one. And so I had bought property up in Idaho at a place called Gaza Ranch in 2008. And there were Gretzky bought. The reason I'm not sure was because of Gretz, and the reason I'm at Gaza is because of Gretz. So he wanted a summer place. So we went up and looked at it, fell in love. And from 08 to 2012 was really slow, the market, due to the downturn. But every summer I was there, I kept bringing in people and they kept buying. And I outsold the sales team there. And so the CEO offered me a job. And I just said, I can't, I'm raising kids and I don't want to move. I'm living in LA. So it wouldn't work out. And then in 2014, they were developing a property in Maui called McKenna Golf and Beach Club. And they casually said, oh, Russ would be great over there, but his wife won't let him move. I said, hang on a second. So I talked to my wife and I started working for Discovery Land Company, and I moved to Maui for 3.5 years, pre-sold a bunch of property over there. I've got 3 kids. One was in college. My son was away he had moved away from home to play hockey. And we have a third child, a daughter, and she was just starting high school. And so after 3.5 years, I said, I gotta be home for her high school years. So I stopped doing it and moved back to LA, but I was commuting. So I was like 4 weeks on, 1 week off, 2 months off in the summer for 3.5 years. And then they said, well, what are you gonna do in the summer? So I said, I'm going to Gaza. So I kept selling at Gaza. And then the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working on a project in Victoria called James Island, but we got turned down for subdivision. So it's on hold right now. So that's what I've been doing. I've really been involved in real estate, building, selling, had a commercial building in Calgary, had that for 10 years, sold that. But if my passion other than hockey would be real estate. I really, my dad talked about real estate a lot when I was a kid. And if he had this money, he would have done this and would have done that. And so when I got to Toronto, Harold Ballard's daughter was doing that, was buying condos and fixing them up and selling them. Then she was into homes, and it was just incredible learning experience for me, but incredible to see what she did. So I started at a young age in real estate when my career wasn't going well in Toronto. When I was in the summer, I got my real estate license. I never used it, but I just wanted to have it in case. And then my career took off, so I didn't need it. But yeah, I love real estate, and I've got some property at Gaza, built a house there, sold it, flipped a couple lots, and still have a property there that I'm either going to build on, or I have my son-in-law. He played for the Vikings. He just got released yesterday, Eric Hendricks. And if he signs a nice deal here in the next couple of days, I'm gonna try and finagle him to partner up with me and build a house.
I love it. You know what would have been great for you to sell property in Montreal while you were playing there? Holy shit. Just
Yeah.
on the side, have your real estate sign on the boards.
Yeah. Behind the bench.
Yeah, behind the bench. Don't
Actually, that was
let him
back
score
then.
for you.
When I don't know if we had advertisement on the boards back then. Remember, Jeff, you can relate. When we first started in the NHL, they didn't have advertisement, and then it started coming in. I don't know what time in our career it started putting them on, but that was weird when they first put those signs on those boards. It was weird.
Yeah, it
Went
threw us
from
off.
white walls to like advertisement.
Isn't it weird to see it when you see a blank wall now, though? It's weird.
Yeah, it's totally weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. It does
what's
not.
going on?
Hey, could you imagine us with a bus stop sign in Montreal back in the day when he was playing? Real T21.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. Yeah, it's crazy now what they've done with the advertising, and now they just made the next step with the boards. TV does the overlays over top whatever they want to put on it, and when you're at the building, the guys that actually paid for the boards are only the people that are attending the game get to see them unless they switch camera angles once in a while. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. They're kind of double dipping on the advertising now, and when we started, there was none. So
yeah, that's right. We were sponsored by Molson's.
Sneaking bags of beer out of that dressing room, trying to having parties on the side.
They were always wondering why Russ was taking the goalie bags.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff Sharples brought it up earlier when we were off the air. You were involved in a wine company for a while.
So my good friend, two of my buddies, Chris Radomski from Toronto and Jason Woodbridge from Vancouver, started a 100-acre wine. They had what else? Layer cake, cherry pie, a very, very successful high-end. The 100 acres amazing wine. It's super expensive, and they split up. Jason bought out Chris, and Chris started a new wine called As One Crew, and there's about 5 of us that are involved. So we have a Cabernet and a Pinot, and we just started it a couple years ago, and it's doing well. It's got some great ratings, and I'm more just on the promotional side of it, wherever I can help with friends. Like Jeff Fuller owns Joey's, and their family owns Earl's. I'm friends with Boston Pizza, Tree Living, Jim Tree Living, and George Melville. So just as much as I can help with them getting into different restaurants, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'd probably drink more of it than I do work at it. But yeah, As One Crew is a wine that I'm involved in. And then Val Bure is a very good friend of mine. He makes some great wine, just amazing. He and his son Lev are working hard at selling their wine, so I try to help out Val as much as I can. But his wine's fantastic. I got into wine in Montreal. I was a beer drinker, typical Western Canadian boy or Canadian boy, go out, drink beer, and do shots. I wasn't a wine guy. I got to Montreal, I'm 23 years old, and Brian Screwlin, Mike McPhee, maybe Guy Carbonneau, and Brent Gilchrist, the older guys are fighting over the wine list. And I'm like, what are they doing? And they're arguing over what wine they should order. We're in Philadelphia. And they said, Russ, will you have a glass of wine? I'm new to the team. So I said, yeah, sure. And I took a sip of that wine. I was eating pasta and I couldn't believe it. It was so freaking good. And so on the road in the States, when I played for Montreal, the entire team was out wine shopping. And when we'd go through customs in Montreal, Serge Savard would say, "Don't look at our bags, but take a couple sticks." And so to the customs officer. So we would come back across the border with wine, and I started collecting then, and I got up to about 2,500 bottles by the time I had retired. And anyways, I shipped it all up to Canada. I moved to Victoria in 2003, lived there till 2007, and I took all my wine with me. And
2,500.
yeah. So when I was moving back to LA, I phoned customs and I said, "Hey, I brought all this wine up to Canada, and now I want to ship it back, what I had left." And the customs officer said, "No one has ever done that. They've never taken wine across the border and then wanted to bring it back. We don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They're probably just they might charge you at the border, they might not." So I ended up selling it, and then I started a new collection. So I probably got about 600 bottles now.
You should have had Serge Savard take it across.
A couple sticks. You know what's funny? People. So the Courtnall boys are very popular up north, and so you just brought up a name. Yes, they're very well known. And so Jason Woodbridge. So we show up at Jason Woodbridge's place, and he brings up Victoria and Jeff and Russ Courtnall.
Oh boy!
So what a character this guy is.
He's a beauty.
He is one of a kind. Jason Woodbridge. Russ is right. 100-acre wine was probably a couple hundred, $200-300 a bottle. I don't know, 5-10 years ago. Now he's probably $750 to $1,000. I'm guessing, right, Russ, somewhere in there. So this guy is something else. He's crazy, but he's a real character and a lot of fun to be around. So then we do this tour with Jason Woodbridge, and we have a great night with him and his wife, and we have dinner. And the next day we go to this place called Grace Family Vineyards. And they go, "Hey, would you like to do a barrel taste?" And we're like, "Of course we'd like to do a barrel taste." And we walk in, and one of the barrels has stamped on it Bure. And I'm like, "Where did you get that? And what's going on?" And it's kind of ironic. Russ is, we've got a little connection here, but that was Valerie, right? And I think, was Pavel involved at one point with Valerie?
No, just Val.
Just Val. So,
just Val. Yeah, it's great wine. Both of those are great wines. 100 acre. So I met, there was a guy in Victoria that turned out to be not a great guy. He had a private jet, and he said to me, "Would you like to go to Napa and try some wine?" So I said, "Sure." So we flew to Vegas, picked up the sommelier from Prime Restaurant in Bellagio, and he took us to Napa. He goes, "You got to try this new wine, 100 acres." So we went into Jason and Chris's office in St. Helena, and they had a chef there, and it was right in the begining. And I just hit it off with Chris and Jason. So we stayed in touch. And every time I went to Napa, I either had dinner with them or went and drank lots of wine at their house. But their wine at the time was $200 a bottle, and now it's so unaffordable. It's crazy. He sent me sent me my what do you call it? Like, he sent me an email with the wine. My allocation. Thank you. So I didn't know how many, it didn't say how many I had per bottle, and it wasn't 100 acre, it was Fortunate Son. And I hit the allocation. It was like $13,400. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm not buying that, your wine, but I do love their wine. It's just freaking silly how, and they're sold out every year. It's a great. A lot of guys love that wine, but that's out of my league.
Before we let you go, and we appreciate you giving us your time today. We really appreciate it. It sounds to me like you're a really good friend. I don't know. Like through these conversations, you seem like a really loyal guy. When you make friendships, you don't, and it's worked out for you. You've helped out. Like you've been able to help your friends out and be able to help you out. Your brother and yourself, you have a charity in British Columbia. Can you tell us about that?
So our parents taught us well. They were very giving. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and my dad coached. My mom ran the concession stands, coached every sport we had, and they helped out along the way. So we learned from them about giving back. Jeff and I, early in our careers, we went to some great events, and we said, when we get established, we've got to do something. So we started out with Canuck Place in Vancouver. We helped raise money for that for 3 years, and then we stopped after we both left Vancouver. When we retired, we wanted to do something in our hometown in Victoria, and unfortunately, we lost our dad to suicide when we were kids. And they were raising money for a bunch of different things in Victoria, and the last thing they were raising money for was a psychiatric emergency center for people struggling with mental health. And they wanted to build a separate facility beside the emergency at Royal Jubilee Hospital. So we got on the bandwagon. We said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we thought we were going to, try to raise 100 or 200,000 to have a golf tournament. And so we went out, got all our friends. Like you said, we've met so many people along the way, a lot of friendships, and tons of people started getting involved. And we had a call-in for mental health on CFAX 1070 for 12 hours on the Thursday before the dinner on Friday. And the golf tournament was Saturday, and a finale party on Sunday. And we raised 224,000 the first day. So we already knew we had that. And then the next night at the black tie dinner, we raised $1 million. We couldn't believe it. We seriously thought 100 or 200,000 was what we were going to be able to raise. And we ended up building this hospital in 2 years. And so we stopped the event because we had over-raised money for this hospital. So we got that built, and they called it the Archie Courtnall Center after our dad. And then years later, I think it was like 2010 or 20, that was in 03, 04. And in 2010 or 11, they were building out 54 beds for long-term care for mental health patients in the hospital. So we had another event, and we helped pay for that. So we now have the Courtnall Society, Mental Health Society, and we raise money and we give it to mental health-based charities or facilities that are helping with kids, with adults. We gave about 10 or 12 grants out last year, and so that's what we're raising money for, to help mental health organizations that are doing great things that are helping people at all ages and different walks of life. So that's our passion right now.
That's great. Thank
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you love golfing. That's.
I heard you're not into golf.
I'm just I shank everything, just like life. I shank it in the woods.
Hey, well, Rusty, we're taking Bagsy down to Cabo a month from now, and we're gonna go. He doesn't know it yet, but we're playing golf one day.
You'll have to send me pictures or videos.
Just embarrassment.
Hitting it back to clubhouse, but so we're gonna get out. But hey, so I would wanted to ask about are you golfing with any of the ex-players, or there's some good alumni around LA now. Who is there anybody you're golfing with, or do you just have you're out in Sherwood area there now, where you just playing with friends you've met there, or how's that work?
Yeah, I'm good friends with Glenn Murray and Luke Robitaille and Rob Blake. I've played with Rob and Muzz a couple times, but they all live in Manhattan Beach, and to come up here, it's a pain in the ass, and to go
Mhm.
down there. It's a pain in the ass. Last year I played with Drew.
Those guys are
Drew
scared to
Dowd.
get by Sepulveda. That's
Yeah, exactly. But last year I had out Drew Dowdy. Who else was playing with us? Oh fuck! In one. Shit, what's his name? I hope you guys can edit this, so I don't.
Oh yeah.
just like,
Commodore. So Commodore,
Oh, yeah.
Dowdy, and
Oh, my God.
yeah, it was fun. We had a good time. So I played with them, Scotty Upshaw and Shane O'Brien. I played with them a couple times, but I mainly play with guys around here
that's
just
awesome.
because it's a long hike and they all want to have a few cocktails after. So they got to plan properly and get a car and all that shit. So.
Do you still pay attention to the game? And you got any thoughts on the trade deadline?
Well, I thought Boston. I'm really close with Cam Neely. I think Cam's done an amazing job in Boston. I watch my Leafs. I'm friends with Roberto and Francesco Aquilini, and I played for the Canucks. So it's been frustrating to say the least, and I'm sure they're even more
Everything's fine.
frustrated.
Yeah, everybody thinks everything's fine.
Yeah. So that, but the league has some really exciting players. So I do watch. I put the game on. My phone tends to distract me. I got a great bar in my house, so the game usually goes on. How much of it I watch depends how much I'm staring at my text messages or social media, but I do watch. And then my son plays in the East Coast Hockey League in Charleston, so I watch three of his games a week. So I'm pretty hockeyed out. I watch every shift he plays and the game. So to sit down and watch a couple more games a week is
What a good dad.
I'd be a freaking scout.
Might as well.
But how about you guys? Do you guys watch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching a lot, especially the West Coast teams. I always watch Vancouver, right? Grew up there. Vegas. We watch those. Love watching the Kings, actually. So I'm in Colorado, but we'll usually catch the second half of the first game, like the East Coast game, and then I'll always tune in, whether it's Edmonton, which I think is must-see TV, some combination of the West Coast game or multiple games. And our buddy Flats, Wade Flaherty's with Winnipeg, so we always try and tune in for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you though. Sometimes you get a little hockeyed out, and you gotta kind of take yourself off to the side of the road and do something else with your life, because we all did it for so long, right?
Yeah.
But I just kind of interested. I'll let Bagsy jump in here too, Russ. But don't you think after the trade deadline, we're kind of getting, even with the salary cap, to the have and the have-nots a little bit? Like it's an arms race in the East. So all those, I mean, only they can't all make it. But I'm just looking like you got Columbus is kind of falling off. You got Anaheim's falling off. San Jose's falling off. Vancouver, it's really been a rough year up there, although they got some great players. Some of these teams, Chicago's fallen through the cracks. And yeah, they're getting draft picks back, but as well as anybody, that's 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I wonder if the league, I mean, I love watching some of these teams. Don't get me wrong. I thought Boston, when they came through Vegas, was just about unstoppable, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs. Do you kind of agree with that, or from what your vantage point, or do you really take that?
What I don't like is when you've got these teams that have done really, really well with their unit, and then they make all these changes, like the Rangers. And they've added these players that aren't 15-minute players or 12-minute. They're like 20-minute or more. And so they're disrupting their team. The reason I said I like Boston is because they just seem to have, the guys are fitting in, although they lost 2 good players to injuries. So it didn't really disrupt their team. But New York and Toronto, it worries me the amount of changes they made. And just you got to keep rolling and then fit these guys in. And those top teams have made all these adjustments, and who's coming out. Like they're going to a couple of them are going to lose in the first round.
Yeah.
And so it worries me about the big changes that teams make. But that the balance with the salary cap sure gets those mathematicians working overtime. It's crazy, but yeah, we'll see. And then, you know, they've got some guys under contract they can't get rid of because they got such, like Erickson would have been dealt, but he's got years left on a big deal.
Right.
And so he would have been, if he had 1 or 2 years left, I'm sure they would have got some high picks for him or
Right.
some
That's that
players.
long-term contract that everybody loves so much to try to make everything fit. And then they're screwed with them. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think something has to change with that whole the salary cap there. You know, how do you make it work? Right. Because it's obviously it's confusing everything. So
Yeah.
but look at Minnesota and they get taken down by $20 million, but they're still doing okay. So they still had room. So it's I guess it's available, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't get that math.
Well, look at all the teams that are doing well are run by players that are retired players. Like look at Toronto. You got Shanahan, Boston, get Yzerman. You know, he did a great job in Tampa. He's rebuilding Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You got Guerin in Minnesota. He takes down 2 players. He buys them out, and they're still winning.
Yeah,
I mean that says a lot about him. Like that's
and they also had room at the end of the still to take somebody's contract that's dead.
Francis in Seattle. I mean, what he's done, he's done a great job. I mean, they know what the difference. Like players who played the game at that level, and then now are in charge of teams. They know how important a room is, and it takes more than just. It takes you just when you know, and those guys have definitely done a great job.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you.
I can't imagine Guerin going to the owner going, "Hey, Suter and who was the other guy? They're making like $14 million bucks."
Yeah, Parise.
He goes, "I want to get rid of them."
Yeah,
we're gonna pay them to play against us.
Yeah, one of them in our own division.
Thank you so much for coming on, Russ. We really appreciate it. We'll have to get you out to a show sometime. Make you have another friend. And then if you really want an embarrassment to come out to your golf course, I'll show up.
Anytime. Maybe when Hershey comes in once in a while.
Yeah, he does. That'll be fun. So we really appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, top shelf. Thanks, Russ.
Okay. Take care.
We appreciate Russ Courtnall coming on and having a good talk with us. That was brought to you by Headgear, headgear.com. Get yourself a backpack, style it yourself, slap some patches on it and let people know how you feel. Headgear.com. Still no code from Headgear.
We're going to start letting Hetty know how we feel pretty soon.
I'm going to put a frowny face on my patch. Jeff, you got any shout outs?
Yeah, I'm going to shout out, we'll do some shout outs this week down in Mexico. We're going to shout out our tour guide, Johnny, his dad, Abraham, and his uncle, Joaquin. These guys are unbelievable. And I'm going to get Johnny. They do a bunch of stuff down here in the Cancun area, the Yucatan Peninsula. Awesome people. And I'm going to shout out to my roommates this weekend, Jim and Marla Laughlin and Rusty and Cheryl Smith, who we came down from Vegas with, along with my lovely wife, Michelle. Awesome people, and we're having a great time. So that's my shout outs this week. And thanks to Russ again. You can see what a special guy that he is and how he learned from being a young player and taking care of other people, and makes us all want to do a little bit better after talking to Russ for an hour.
Yeah.
And our good friend Snacks Hershey, who got us in touch with Russ so we could come on. Great guy. And what a family of hockey players, him and his brother, Jeff.
Fantastic hockey players. If you grew up in British Columbia, you know the Courtnall brothers. I've got a long list of shout outs this week. So I was with Bert Kreischer from last Tuesday until I got home yesterday. I was supposed to fly into Winnipeg, but I ended up having to go to Fargo due to weather, where they were starting their tour, but I wasn't supposed to be on that show. I ended up on that show. So my first shout out is to the Fargo Force of the USHL, who brought us into their dressing room afterwards, and we had a little hangout. Bert put the player of the game award around his neck and gave the guys that came out a speech. It was brilliant, and they just loved him. So Fargo Force, fantastic. Then the next night we go up to Winnipeg. Shout out to the Winnipeg Jets, Jay, their equipment guy there, equipment manager, and Wade brought us down to work. We got to work out at the facilities, and I thought we were going to practice facilities. We went downtown to the arena, so we were in their locker room at the arena. We used their gym facilities. We had lunch afterwards. We hung out with the players that night. Hellebuck and Lowry and a couple other players, and Wade came out to the show and hung out and had a good time. So they just took great care of us. The next night we end up in Saskatoon, where the Saskatoon Blades give us their gym to work out in. And then a bunch of their players come out to the show. It was fantastic. And of course, Bert did another game-winning speech for the players, which their award is an axe. So he's holding an axe. And then we ended up in Edmonton, seen Trent Franson. He came out, had a good time there. And then we ended up in Calgary, had a good time in Calgary. Nobody showed up to that one. And then we ended up in Kelowna, where we did the building that the Kelowna Rockets play in. And my shout out is to the guy that does the murals on the wall. Holy shit. They are the worst murals I've ever seen. Not one player looks, I'm like, is this guy looking through a bottom of a wine bottle when he paints these? Like, it's just so sad. So big shout out to them, but they gave us a jersey, and a big shout out to everybody in Canada that came out in the shows. I performed in front of approximately 30,000 people last week. So yeah. From the West Coast.
Big shooter.
I'm a big shooter. That's a humble brag, but I'm getting a big shout out to everybody. So thank you so much. And to Brian Almy, whose birthday it is tomorrow. He does all the work in the background on all these shows. So happy birthday, Brian. Thank you for being part of enjoying orange slice. Enjoying orange slices. That's it. Loved all.
Happy birthday, Brian. Loved all.